Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a brand new episode of our podcast. I'm your host, Adam, and today we're diving into one of the most nerve-wracking parts of any job interview, answering tough questions in English. If you've ever found yourself frozen when asked something unexpected, or struggled to find the right words, this episode is for you.
Hi, Adam. I'm so excited to be here today. It's true those tough interview questions can really throw you off, but with the right strategies, they're no longer something to fear.
Exactly. Whether it's, tell me about a time you failed, or why should we hire you? Tough questions test your composure and your ability to think on your feet. But don't worry, by the end of this episode, you'll be armed with strategies to handle them like a pro.
That's right. We're going to break down these questions, give you real-world examples, and share some techniques to help you answer confidently, even in high-pressure situations.
So, if you've ever felt your heart race at the thought of a tough question during an interview, this episode will teach you how to turn that pressure into your advantage. Stick with us, because by the end, you'll be ready to tackle even the hardest interview questions in English without breaking a sweat.
Stay tuned because we'll give you practical tips, real-life examples, and even some insider secrets that will make you stand out as the perfect candidate. Let's get started.
All right, Sophia, let's dive into the first and arguably most important step in mastering tough interview questions, your mindset. You know, when most people prepare for interviews, they focus on the obvious, researching the company, practicing their answers, maybe even picking out the perfect outfit. But what they often miss is preparing mentally. And here's the thing, if your mindset isn't right, even the best prepared answers can fall flat. Don't you think?
You're absolutely spot on, Adam. Mindset is like the foundation of a house. Without it, no matter how well you decorate, how perfect your answers are, how polished your resume is, the whole thing can crumble under pressure. And here's the kicker. Your mindset isn't just about staying calm in the moment. It's about how you perceive the entire interview process. Do you see it as a nerve-wracking interrogation where you're at the mercy of the interviewer? Or do you see it as a conversation, an opportunity to showcase your skills and learn about the company? That shift alone can change everything.
That's such an important point. And honestly, most people walk into interviews with this idea that they're being judged, and only judged. They think the interviewer holds all the power. But what they forget is that an interview is really a two-way street. You're evaluating the company just as much as they're evaluating you. If you can approach it with that mindset, it levels the playing field, doesn't it?
Exactly, Adam. And I can't emphasize this enough. When you see the interview as a mutual exchange of information, it immediately takes the pressure off. Suddenly, you're not just there to prove yourself. You're also there to see if this company aligns with your goals, your values, and your career aspirations. It's empowering to realize that you have a choice too. But here's where mindset goes even deeper. Confidence. How you see yourself matters just as much as how you see the process. And let me tell you, Adam, confidence isn't about pretending you know everything or faking it until you make it. It's about genuinely believing in your worth.
I love that. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle, believing in their own worth, especially if they've been rejected in previous interviews or are applying for roles outside their comfort zone. It's so easy to let self-doubt creep in. So, Sophia, what's your advice for someone who feels like they're not good enough, or that they don't have what it takes?
Adam, that's such a common feeling. And I want everyone listening to know that it's okay to feel that way. You're not alone. But here's the thing. Those thoughts are often just stories we tell ourselves. They're not facts. If you've been called for an interview, it means the company sees potential in you. They believe you have something valuable to offer. So, why not believe in yourself too? One exercise I recommend is creating a career highlight reel. Sit down and write out your top achievements, your proudest moments, and the challenges you've overcome. Keep it handy and review it before your interview. It's a powerful reminder of what you bring to the table.
That's such a fantastic idea. And when you take the time to reflect on your achievements, it not only boosts your confidence, but also gives you great material to use in your answers. You can weave those stories into your responses, showing the interviewer what you've accomplished without coming across as boastful. But let's talk about something else that can trip people up: nerves. Even the most prepared candidates can feel their heart racing and their palms sweating as they wait for their turn. What's your take on handling pre-interview nerves?
Oh, nerves are so natural, Adam. In fact, they're a sign that you care about the opportunity, but the key is not letting those nerves take over. One of the simplest and most effective techniques I swear by is controlled breathing. It might sound basic, but it's incredibly powerful. Here's what you do. Before you walk into the interview, find a quiet corner or even sit in your car. Take a deep breath in for 4 counts. Hold it for 4 counts, and then exhale slowly for 6 counts. Do this for a minute or two. It calms your nervous system and brings your focus back to the present moment.
I've tried that technique before, and I can confirm it works like magic. It's amazing how just a few deep breaths can bring you back from the edge of panic. And let's not forget about visualization. I know a lot of athletes use it before big games, but it's just as effective for interviews. Imagine yourself walking into that room, shaking hands with the interviewer, answering questions with confidence, and leaving with a smile. When you see success in your mind, you're more likely to achieve it in reality.
Exactly, Adam. Visualization is such a game changer. It primes your brain for success. And here's another tip. Reframe your nervousness as excitement. Instead of thinking, "I'm so nervous," tell yourself, "I'm excited for this opportunity." Your body doesn't actually know the difference between nervousness and excitement. It's all about how your brain interprets the feeling. That simple shift in perspective can transform how you approach the interview.
Wow, that's so powerful. And I think it ties into another mindset shift that's worth mentioning: seeing tough questions as opportunities instead of traps. So many people dread questions like, "What's your biggest weakness?" or "Tell me about a time you failed." But what if we saw those questions as a chance to show our resilience and growth?
Exactly, Adam. Tough questions are your moment to shine. They're not designed to trick you. They're there to see how you think, how you handle pressure, and how you learn from your experiences. Instead of dreading them, embrace them. Think of them as opportunities to tell your story and showcase your problem-solving skills. And remember, it's okay to take a moment to think before answering. Silence isn't your enemy. It shows you're thoughtful and intentional.
Such a great point, Sophia. All right, before we move on to our next segment, let's give our listeners some actionable takeaways. If you're tuning in, grab a pen and write these down. Sophia, what are the top mindset shifts our audience should focus on to prepare mentally for tough interviews?
1. See the interview as a two-way street. You're evaluating the company just as much as they're evaluating you. 2. Build genuine confidence by reflecting on your skills, achievements, and unique value. 3. Manage pre-interview nerves with deep breathing, visualization, and reframing nervousness as excitement. 4th, approach tough questions as opportunities to showcase your growth and problem-solving abilities. 5. Practice self-compassion. One mistake doesn't define you.
That's incredible advice, Sophia. If our listeners can master these mindset shifts, they'll already be miles ahead of the competition. Now that we've discussed mastering the right mindset, let's move on to the next crucial step in preparing for any job interview: researching the company and the role. Sophia, I think this is where a lot of candidates either overdo it, memorizing every single line on the company website, or they skip it entirely, thinking, "Why bother? They'll tell me everything I need to know during the interview." What's your take on this?
Oh, Adam, you're so right. Researching the company and role is such a misunderstood step. Some people think skimming the About Us page is enough, while others stress themselves out by trying to memorize the company's entire history. But here's the truth. Effective research isn't about knowing everything. It's about finding the right information, the details that will help you tailor your answers, ask insightful questions, and demonstrate that you've done your homework.
Exactly. Interviewers can always tell when a candidate hasn't bothered to research, or when they're just regurgitating surface-level facts. And let's be honest, if you're competing against other strong candidates, your research can be the thing that sets you apart. So, Sophia, what's the first step in researching a company? Where should someone begin?
Great question, Adam. The first step is understanding the company's mission, vision, and values. These are the core principles that guide the organization. Look at their website, especially the About or Our Story section. Pay attention to their mission statement, what they aim to achieve, and their values, what principles drive their decisions. For example, if a company emphasizes innovation, you know they'll value creativity and forward-thinking ideas. If they focus on sustainability, they might look for candidates who share those priorities.
That's such a great starting point. And it's not just about knowing the mission statement, it's about connecting with it. Ask yourself, does this company's mission resonate with me? How does it align with my own career goals and values? And when you can articulate that connection during the interview, it shows you're not just looking for a paycheck. You genuinely care about the company's purpose.
Absolutely, Adam. And here's another key area to research. The company's recent news and achievements. This is where you dig a little deeper. Has the company launched a new product or service? Have they expanded into new markets? Are they winning awards or achieving milestones? These kinds of details are gold. They show you're not just familiar with the company's history, you're keeping up with where they're heading.
Yes, and there are so many ways to find this information. Check their social media channels, read press releases, and set up Google alerts for the company name. You might even find articles or interviews with their leadership team. If you can reference something recent and specific, like, I saw that you just opened a new office in Berlin, that's exciting. It shows you're engaged and interested.
Exactly, Adam. And that brings me to my next point, understanding the role you're applying for. It's not enough to know the job title. You need to dig into the responsibilities, the expectations, and how the role fits into the bigger picture. Start with the job description. Look at the required skills and qualifications. But don't stop there. Think about why this role exists. How does it contribute to the company's goals? If it's a sales position, for example, your research might reveal that they're trying to expand into a specific market. If it's a project management role, maybe they're focusing on streamlining operations.
And here's a pro tip. If you're unsure about certain responsibilities or expectations, check LinkedIn. Look for people with the same or similar job titles at the company. Often, their profiles will give you clues about what the role really entails, beyond what's in the official job description.
That's a great tip, Adam. And while you're on LinkedIn, don't forget to research the interviewer or hiring manager if you know their name. Look at their background, their career path, and their interests. This can help you find common ground or even tailor your responses to align with their perspective. For instance, if your interviewer has a background in data analytics, you might highlight your analytical skills during the interview.
Such a good point, Sophia. And it's not just about impressing them, it's about building rapport. People naturally connect with others who share their interests or experiences. If you can find that connection, even in something small, it can make the interview feel more conversational and less formal.
Exactly. And let's not forget one final but crucial piece of research: the company culture. Every company has its own vibe, its own way of working. Is it formal or laid back? Collaborative or more independent? You can often get a sense of this from the company's website, social media, and employee reviews on sites like Glassdoor. Understanding the culture helps you determine if it's the right fit for you and tailor your answers to show how you align with their work environment.
That's so true, Sophia. If you're applying to a startup, for example, they might value adaptability and a willingness to wear multiple hats. If it's a more traditional corporation, they might prioritize structure and attention to detail. Knowing this in advance helps you frame your answers in a way that resonates with their values.
Exactly. And here's a quick recap for our listeners. When researching a company and role, focus on these 5 areas. 1. Mission, vision, and values. Understand what drives the company and align your goals with theirs. 2. Recent news and achievements. Stay updated on their latest developments to show genuine interest. 3rd, role responsibilities. Go beyond the job description to understand how the role contributes to the company's goals. 4th, interviewer. Background. Research the person you'll be speaking with to build rapport and tailor your answers. 5. Company culture. Learn about their work environment to see if it's the right fit for you.
All right. Now, let's dive into the meat of the interview, the tough questions. You know, the ones that make your palms sweat and your heart race. What's your biggest weakness? Or, tell me about a time you failed. Those are the ones we're talking about. Sophia, I think these questions can feel like walking into a trap, don't you think?
Oh, Adam, absolutely. The tough questions are the ones that make even the most confident candidates stumble. But here's the thing. These questions aren't actually traps, even though they might feel like it. Interviewers aren't sitting there waiting for you to slip up so they can cross you off the list. Instead, these questions are designed to reveal something deeper about you. Your self-awareness, your ability to reflect and grow, and how you handle challenges or failures. If you think about it, these questions are actually opportunities to shine, but only if you know how to approach them strategically.
That's such an important point, Sophia. It's all about reframing the way we see these questions. Instead of dreading them, see them as a chance to show the interviewer who you really are. Let's start with one of the most infamous questions. What's your biggest weakness? This one has been around forever, and yet it still manages to throw people off. Why do you think that is?
You know, Adam, I think it's because the question feels counterintuitive. In a situation where you're trying to present yourself as the best possible candidate, admitting to a weakness feels like shooting yourself in the foot. People either panic and blurt out something that makes them sound unqualified, or they go for the overly rehearsed cliché answers like, "Oh, I just work too hard." But here's the truth. The interviewer isn't looking for perfection. They know it doesn't exist. What they want is honesty paired with self-awareness and growth. They want to see that you're someone who can recognize areas for improvement and take steps to address them.
That's such a refreshing perspective, Sophia. So instead of trying to dodge the question or sugarcoat the answer, you're saying the key is to embrace it. But how do you strike that balance between being honest about a weakness and not undermining your candidacy?
Great question, Adam. The key is to choose a real weakness, something that's honest but not a deal breaker for the role, and then focus on the steps you've taken or are taking to improve. For example, let's say you struggle with time management. Instead of saying, "I'm terrible at managing my time," you could say something like this. "In the past, I've struggled with time management, especially when juggling multiple projects. I would sometimes focus too much on one task and fall behind on others. But I recognized this as an area I needed to improve, so I started using project management tools like Trello and setting strict daily priorities. I've seen a significant improvement in how I organize my time, and now I feel much more confident handling multiple responsibilities effectively." This type of answer shows vulnerability, accountability, and, most importantly, growth. You're acknowledging a weakness, but you're also demonstrating that you're proactive about overcoming it.
That's such a strong example, Sophia. It's honest, without being overly self-critical, and it positions you as someone who's always striving to improve. I love that. Okay, let's tackle another tough one. Tell me about a time you failed. This is a question that can feel incredibly personal and uncomfortable. Why do you think interviewers ask it, and how should candidates approach it?
Oh, Adam, this is one of those questions that can really separate great candidates from good ones. When an interviewer asks about failure, they're not trying to humiliate you or make you squirm. They're trying to understand how you handle adversity, how you bounce back, and whether you learn from your mistakes. Failure is a universal experience. Everyone's failed at something at some point. What matters isn't the failure itself, but how you respond to it. That's what you need to focus on in your answer.
That makes so much sense, Sophia. So how do you craft a strong answer to this question? What are the key elements to include?
The best way to answer this question is to use the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. Start by briefly describing the situation and the task at hand. What were you trying to achieve? Then explain what went wrong. Be honest, but concise. The most important part of your answer is the action you took to address the failure and what you learned from the experience. Finally, wrap up with the result. How did this lesson improve your approach in the future? Let me give you an example. Early in my career, I was managing a project for a new client, and I underestimated the time required for one of the key deliverables. As a result, we missed a deadline, which strained the relationship with the client. I took full responsibility and immediately scheduled a meeting with the client to apologize and present a revised timeline. I also implemented a new process for estimating project timelines, including regular check-ins with the team to ensure we stayed on track. Since then, I've successfully managed multiple projects without missing a single deadline. That experience taught me the importance of proactive communication and detailed planning. This answer shows that you're willing to own your mistakes, learn from them, and take steps to prevent them from happening again. It's a powerful way to turn a negative into a positive.
That's such a fantastic example, Sophia. It's real, relatable, and it shows growth. And I think that's the key takeaway here. It's not about pretending you've never failed. It's about showing that you've learned and improved because of it. All right, let's move on to another common but challenging question. Why should we hire you? This one sounds simple on the surface, but it's so easy to get it wrong. What's the secret to nailing this question?
Oh, Adam, this question is such a classic. On the surface, it feels like the interviewer is asking for a sales pitch, and in a way, they are. But the secret to nailing this question isn't just listing your skills and accomplishments. It's about connecting the dots between what you bring to the table and what the company needs. Think of it as an opportunity to tell a story, your story, about why you're uniquely qualified for the role. Start by summarizing your most relevant skills and experiences. Then, highlight how those align with the company's goals and challenges. And finally, emphasize the value you'll bring to their team.
I love the idea of telling a story, Sophia. Can you give us an example of how someone might answer this question?
Of course. Here's how you might approach it. Based on our conversation and what I've learned about this role, I believe I'm a strong fit for several reasons. First, I have over 5 years of experience in digital marketing, where I've successfully led campaigns that increased customer engagement by 40%. I'm particularly excited about the opportunity to work with your team because of your focus on innovation and data-driven strategies, which aligns perfectly with my strengths. Additionally, I thrive in collaborative environments, and I've consistently been recognized for my ability to work across departments to achieve shared goals. I'm confident that my skills, combined with my passion for creative problem-solving, can contribute to your company's continued success. This kind of answer not only highlights your strengths, but also shows you've done your homework and are genuinely excited about the role.
That's such a well-rounded answer, Sophia. It's confident, tailored, and forward-thinking, exactly what interviewers want to hear. All right, before we wrap up this segment, do you have any final advice for our listeners on handling tough questions?
I do, Adam. My biggest piece of advice is to practice until you feel confident, but not robotic. Write down your answers, rehearse them out loud, and, if possible, get feedback from someone you trust. Also, remember that it's okay to pause and think before answering. Taking a moment to collect your thoughts shows that you're thoughtful and deliberate, not unprepared. And finally, be authentic. It's better to give an honest, heartfelt answer than a polished but insincere one. Authenticity always stands out.
All right, we've covered a lot so far, from preparing your mindset to tackling tough questions. But now we're moving into something that's a mainstay in almost every interview: behavioral questions. Sophia, you know the ones I'm talking about. Those questions that start with, "Tell me about a time when..." These can really throw people off because they require you to dig into your past experiences and connect them to the role. What's your take on these types of questions?
Adam, behavioral questions are definitely among the most important and challenging parts of an interview. The reason they're so popular is that they allow interviewers to get a sense of how you've handled real-life situations in the past, which is often a strong indicator of how you'll perform in the future. And you're right, they can be intimidating because they demand specific, detailed responses. But here's the good news. With the right preparation, you can absolutely ace them.
So true, Sophia. And I think what makes these questions tricky is the sheer variety. You could be asked about leadership, teamwork, problem-solving, conflict resolution, and so much more. How do you even begin to prepare for something so broad?
Great question, Adam. The secret lies in two things: knowing the STAR method and having a solid bank of stories to draw from. Let's start with STAR, which stands for Situation, Task, Action, and Result. This framework helps you structure your answers in a clear, concise, and impactful way. You start by setting the scene. Describe the situation and the task you were responsible for. Then, you explain the action you took to address the task or resolve the situation. Finally, you highlight the result, ideally with measurable outcomes. Using STAR keeps you focused and ensures you're providing enough detail without rambling.
The STAR method is such a lifesaver. But what about building that bank of stories? How do you know which experiences to focus on?
This is where preparation really comes in, Adam. I recommend sitting down with the job description and identifying the key skills and qualities the employer is looking for. Then think back on your career or life experiences and identify stories that demonstrate those skills. For example, if the job requires strong leadership, think of a time when you led a project or team. If it's about problem solving, recall a time you tackled a complex challenge. Aim for a mix of experiences that cover a range of skills, and make sure each story has a positive outcome or a meaningful lesson.
That's such practical advice, Sophia. Can you walk us through an example of a behavioral question and how someone might use STAR to answer it effectively?
Absolutely. Let's take a common one. Tell me about a time when you had to handle a conflict at work. Here's how you could answer using STAR. Situation. In my previous role as a marketing coordinator, we were preparing for a major product launch and tensions were running high. One of my colleagues and I disagreed about the direction of the social media campaign. They wanted to focus solely on paid ads, while I believed a mix of organic and paid strategies would be more effective. Task. My task was to resolve the conflict and ensure we had a unified approach before the launch deadline. Action. I decided to schedule a meeting with my colleague to discuss our perspectives in detail. I actively listened to their concerns and shared data from past campaigns to support my approach. We ultimately agreed on a compromise where we allocated 70% of the budget to paid ads, but incorporated a targeted organic strategy as well. Result: the campaign was a huge success, exceeding engagement goals by 25%, and my colleague and I gained a better understanding of each other's working styles, which improved our collaboration on future projects. This answer is clear, specific, and demonstrates not only conflict resolution, but also teamwork, communication, and strategic thinking.
Wow, Sophia, that's a fantastic example. It's detailed yet concise, and it really shows how someone can turn a potentially negative situation into a positive outcome. What about a question like, tell me about a time when you failed to meet a deadline? How should someone approach a question like that without making themselves look bad?
That's another tough one, Adam, but it's all about owning your experience and focusing on what you learned. Here's an example. Situation. Early in my career, I was managing a client project that had a tight deadline. I underestimated how long certain tasks would take and didn't factor in unexpected delays. Task. My responsibility was to deliver the project on time, but we missed the deadline by 2 days, which impacted the client's campaign schedule. Action. I immediately reached out to the client to explain the situation and proposed a solution to minimize the impact. I also took steps to ensure this wouldn't happen again by implementing a more detailed project timeline with built-in buffers for unexpected delays. I started using project management software to track progress and set clear milestones. Result: the client appreciated my honesty and the steps I took to rectify the situation. Moving forward, I delivered all subsequent projects on or ahead of schedule, and the client continued working with us for several years. This approach shows accountability, problem-solving, and a commitment to improvement, which are all qualities interviewers value.
That's such a great way to frame it, Sophia. And I think the key takeaway here is that behavioral questions aren't about perfection. They're about growth, adaptability, and how you've handled real-world challenges. Do you have any final tips for our listeners on handling these types of questions?
Absolutely, Adam. First, practice is essential. Take the time to write out your star stories and rehearse them so they flow naturally. But don't memorize them word for word. You want to sound authentic, not robotic. Second, don't be afraid to take a moment to think before answering. It's better to pause and gather your thoughts than to ramble or give a vague response. Finally, remember to tailor your stories to the role you're applying for. The more relevant your examples are to the job, the more impactful they'll be.
All right, we've explored behavioral questions, tough questions, and how to prepare for them. But now we're zooming in on two of the most dreaded interview topics: weaknesses and failure. These are the questions that make candidates freeze because they feel like a minefield. What's your biggest weakness? Or, tell me about a time you failed. How do you even begin to answer these without sabotaging yourself? Sophia, why do you think interviewers love these questions so much?
Oh, Adam, these questions are definitely a love-hate relationship for many candidates. But here's the thing. Interviewers ask these not to trip you up, but to understand who you really are. Think about it. Nobody's perfect. Employers know that. What they want to see is your self-awareness and your ability to turn challenges into growth opportunities. How you answer these questions tells them a lot about your character, resilience, and whether you're willing to evolve. In fact, a well-crafted response to a weaknesses or failure question can actually make you stand out as a thoughtful, authentic candidate.
That's such an important mindset shift. These aren't gotcha questions. They're opportunities to demonstrate growth. But I think the challenge is that people either go too far, admitting to something that really is a red flag, or they're too vague, saying something like, "I work too hard." How can someone find the right balance?
Great point, Adam. The key is to pick something real but manageable, something that doesn't directly conflict with the core requirements of the job. And then, it's all about how you frame it. You're not just admitting to a weakness or a failure, you're showing how you've worked to overcome it. Let me give you an example for each, starting with the weakness question. Imagine you're applying for a role where attention to detail is crucial, but you struggle with staying organized. Instead of just saying, "I'm not organized," you could frame it like this. In the past, I've struggled with staying organized, especially when managing multiple projects simultaneously. I realized this was an area I needed to improve, so I started using digital tools like Trello and setting daily priorities. These changes have helped me become much more efficient, and now I feel confident managing even the busiest schedules. This approach shows growth, adaptability, and self-awareness, all things employers value.
I love that, Sophia. It's honest, but proactive. You're turning what could be a negative into a positive. Okay, let's tackle the failure question next. What's the best way to approach, "Tell me about a time you failed"?
The failure question. This one can definitely feel personal. But here's the thing. Failure is a universal experience. Everyone's been there. What matters isn't the failure itself, but how you responded to it and what you learned. The best way to answer this question is to focus on the recovery and the lesson. Let me share an example. In my previous role, I was leading a project for a major client, and I underestimated how much time the initial research phase would take. As a result, we fell behind schedule, and I had to present a revised timeline to the client. It was a tough conversation, but I took full responsibility and outlined specific steps to get us back on track. I also learned from that experience and developed a new project planning template that included more buffer time for unexpected delays. Since then, I've successfully delivered multiple projects on time, and I use that template to this day. This answer is structured, self-reflective, and ends on a high note. It shows accountability and growth, which are exactly what interviewers want to see.
That's such a powerful example, Sophia. And I think what stands out to me is the honesty combined with problem solving. You're not shying away from the mistake, but you're also not dwelling on it. You're focusing on what you learned and how you improved.
Exactly, Adam. It's all about showing resilience. And here's another tip. Avoid blaming others or external circumstances. Even if the failure wasn't entirely your fault, focus on what you could control and what you did to make things right. That shows maturity and accountability.
That's such a valuable point, Sophia. So let's talk strategy. How can listeners prepare for these questions so they're not caught off guard in the interview?
Preparation is everything, Adam. Start by reflecting on your past experiences and identifying a few moments where you faced challenges, whether it's a weakness you've worked on or a failure you've learned from. Then, use the STAR method to structure your stories. For weaknesses, think about the qualities you've genuinely improved upon. And for failures, focus on situations where you've made a meaningful recovery. And practice. The more you rehearse your answers, the more confident you'll feel delivering them. But remember, authenticity is key. Don't over-rehearse to the point where you sound robotic or insincere.
That's great advice. And I think one more thing to add is to tailor your answers to the role. For example, if the job is heavily collaborative, your weakness shouldn't be, "I don't work well in teams," even if it's true. Instead, choose something that shows room for growth but still aligns with the role's requirements.
Exactly, Adam. Tailoring is so important. And here's another pro tip. When you're discussing a failure, end your story by connecting it to the value you'd bring to the company. For example, if your failure taught you how to better manage time or communicate effectively, emphasize how those skills will benefit your future employer.
Sophia, you've shared so many golden nuggets in this segment. Any final thoughts for our listeners on tackling these tricky questions?
Yes, Adam. My final piece of advice is to embrace these questions as opportunities, not obstacles. They're a chance to show your humanity, your resilience, and your commitment to growth. No one expects you to be perfect, They just want to know that you're self-aware and proactive. So be honest, be strategic, and most importantly, be yourself.
All right, we've tackled weaknesses, failures, and behavioral questions so far. Now, let's talk about something equally critical: situational and hypothetical questions. These are the ones that start with, "What would you do if," or "Imagine you're in this situation." Sophia, these questions can be a curveball for many candidates because they require you to think on your feet. Why do interviewers love asking them?
Adam, that's such a great way to describe them. Curveballs. Situational and hypothetical questions are all about testing a candidate's problem-solving skills, critical thinking, and ability to handle pressure. Unlike behavioral questions, where you draw on past experiences, these questions require you to imagine future scenarios and craft logical, actionable solutions. Interviewers want to see how you'd approach challenges in real time, especially if you don't have a ready-made answer. They're designed to assess your creativity, resourcefulness, and decision-making skills.
So these questions are less about what you've done and more about how you'd approach a potential scenario. But here's the thing. Thinking on your feet can be nerve-wracking, especially in a high-pressure situation like an interview. How can candidates prepare for something so unpredictable?
Great question, Adam. Preparation is still key, even for these unpredictable scenarios. While you can't anticipate every question, you can develop a structured approach to answering them. One of the best methods is the PRR method: problem, action, result. Here's how it works. 1. Problem. Start by clearly outlining the scenario or issue presented in the question. 2. Action. Describe the steps you'd take to address the problem. 3. Result. Conclude with a positive outcome you'd aim to achieve. This structure keeps your answer logical, focused, and solution-oriented. And it helps you avoid rambling, which can happen when you're brainstorming on the spot.
That's a fantastic framework, Sophia. Do you have an example to show how this works in action?
Of course. Let's take a classic situational question. What would you do if you were assigned to a project with a tight deadline and a team member wasn't pulling their weight? Using the PAR method, here's how you could respond. Problem. If I found myself in that situation, my first step would be to assess the scope of the issue. Is the team member struggling due to workload, lack of skills, or a personal issue? Understanding the root cause would be crucial before taking action. Action. Next, I'd have a one-on-one conversation with the team member to discuss the challenges they're facing and see how I could support them. If necessary, I'd redistribute tasks within the team to ensure we stayed on track. At the same time, I'd communicate with the project stakeholders to manage expectations and keep them updated on our progress. Result. The goal would be to create a collaborative environment where the team member feels supported, the project stays on schedule, and the quality of work remains high. I've found that proactive communication and adaptability are key in such situations. This response shows empathy, leadership, and a solution-oriented mindset, which are qualities interviewers look for.
That's such a well-rounded answer, Sophia. It shows you're not just focused on the problem, but on creating a positive outcome for everyone involved. Now, what about those really hypothetical questions? The ones that seem completely out of left field? Like, if you were a superhero, what would your superpower be and why? How do you even begin to answer something like that?
The classic off-the-wall question. These are meant to assess your creativity, personality, and how you think under pressure. While there's no right or wrong answer, you want to tie your response back to the job or the skills you bring to the table. For instance, if you're asked about a superpower, think of one that highlights a key strength or value. Here's an example. If I could have any superpower, I'd choose the ability to instantly learn and understand anything. In today's fast-paced world, Adaptability and continuous learning are so important, especially in roles where you're constantly encountering new challenges or technologies. This superpower would allow me to stay ahead, solve problems efficiently, and bring value to my team in any situation. This answer is thoughtful, unique, and still ties back to the qualities employers are looking for.
I love that, Sophia. It's clever and job relevant. And I think that's the golden rule for hypothetical questions. Always connect your answer back to the role or the company's values. It turns what could feel like a random question into another opportunity to sell yourself.
Exactly, Adam. Another tip for hypothetical questions is to keep your answer structured and concise. It's easy to get carried away with creative scenarios, but you want to stay professional and focused. And don't forget to show enthusiasm. These questions are also a chance for your personality to shine through.
So, to recap, situational and hypothetical questions are all about showcasing your problem-solving skills, creativity, and adaptability. The PAR method is your best friend for situational questions, and for hypothetical ones, it's all about tying your creativity back to the job. Any final tips for our listeners, Sophia?
Yes, Adam. My final tip is to embrace these questions as a chance to stand out. These are the moments where you can show how you think, how you lead, and how you handle challenges. Be confident, stay structured, and don't be afraid to let a bit of your personality shine through. Remember, interviews aren't just about qualifications. They're about showing who you are as a person.
All right. We're nearing the final stretch of today's episode, but we've saved one of the most important topics for last: handling interviews as a non-native English speaker or when language barriers come into play. This is a challenge many job seekers face, and it can feel overwhelming to navigate an interview in a second language. Sophia, you've worked with so many non-native English speakers. What's the biggest concern you've noticed, and how can they overcome it?
Adam, the biggest concern I hear from non-native speakers is fear. Fear of making a mistake, fear of not being understood, or fear of sounding less confident. And let me just say to anyone listening, you are not alone in this. Interviews are nerve-wracking enough in your native language, let alone in a second or third one. But here's the thing. Your ability to communicate in English is just one part of what you bring to the table. What matters most is your attitude, preparation, and ability to convey your ideas effectively, even if your English isn't perfect.
That's such an important reminder, Sophia. But let's get practical. What are some specific strategies non-native speakers can use to build confidence and perform well in interviews?
Great question, Adam. Here are some actionable strategies. 1. Prepare key phrases in advance. Think about the common questions you might be asked, and prepare concise, well-rehearsed answers. Practice introducing yourself, describing your work experience, and answering behavioral questions using frameworks like STAR. This preparation will give you a strong foundation and reduce the stress of finding the right words on the spot. 2. Focus on clarity over perfection. You don't need a perfect accent or flawless grammar to succeed. What's more important is speaking clearly and confidently. Use simple sentences if you're unsure about complex structures. The goal is to ensure your interviewer understands you, not to impress them with advanced vocabulary. 3. Leverage nonverbal communication. Body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice can go a long way in reinforcing your message. Smile, maintain eye contact, and use gestures to emphasize your points. These nonverbal cues can compensate for any language gaps and show your enthusiasm. 4. Ask for clarification when needed. If you don't understand a question, don't be afraid to ask for clarification. You can say something like, "Could you please rephrase that?" Or, "I want to make sure I understand your question correctly. Could you explain it again?" Interviewers appreciate candidates who take the initiative to ensure clear communication.
Sophia, those tips are fantastic. But what about building confidence in speaking English overall? Do you have any advice for listeners who feel self-conscious about their language skills?
Absolutely, Adam. Building confidence takes time, but here are a few things that can help. 1. Practice. 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 Practice speaking English as much as possible, even outside of interviews. Join language exchange programs, participate in group discussions, or work with a language coach. The more you speak, the more comfortable you'll feel. 2. Record yourself. Record yourself answering interview questions and play them back. This helps you identify areas for improvement and get used to hearing your own voice in English. Over time, this can boost your confidence. 3. Focus on your strengths. Remember, your skills, experiences, and qualifications are what got you the interview in the first place. Your language abilities are just a tool to showcase those strengths, not the sole focus. 4. Reframe your mindset. Instead of seeing your language skills as a weakness, view them as an asset. Being bilingual or multilingual is a valuable skill in today's global job market. Highlight your ability to communicate across cultures as a strength.
I love that perspective shift, Sophia. And I think it's worth emphasizing that many employers appreciate the effort and determination it takes to succeed in a second language. It shows resilience and adaptability. What about during the interview itself? Are there any specific tips for navigating challenging moments, like forgetting a word or struggling to explain something?
Great question, Adam. First, it's important to stay calm. If you forget a word, try rephrasing or describing it. For example, if you can't think of the word deadline, you could say, the final date to complete a task. Most interviewers will understand and appreciate your effort. Second, if you're stuck, don't be afraid to pause and gather your thoughts. You can say something like, "Let me take a moment to think about that." Pausing is completely normal, even for native speakers. Third, be honest. If there's a word or concept you don't understand, it's okay to admit it. You might say, "I'm not familiar with that term. Could you explain it?" This shows humility and a willingness to learn, which are qualities employers value.
Sophia, these are such practical and empowering tips. Any final words for our non-native English-speaking listeners who might still be feeling nervous about their next interview?
Yes, Adam. To all our listeners out there, remember that every great communicator was once a beginner. Your language journey is a testament to your dedication and perseverance. Interviews are as much about showcasing your character as they are about your skills. So, walk in with your head high, prepare thoroughly, and don't be afraid to let your personality shine. You've got this.
All right. We've covered a lot of ground in today's episode, but now it's time to talk about something that often goes overlooked: body language. It's one of the most powerful tools you have in an interview, and yet so many candidates forget to focus on it. Sophia, why is body language so important in interviews, and how does it impact the way interviewers perceive you?
Oh, Adam, body language is everything. It's the unspoken language that communicates just as much, if not more, than your words. Research has shown that around 55% of communication is nonverbal. So how you present yourself physically during an interview can really influence the outcome. Body language not only conveys confidence and engagement, but also reveals your true emotions and intentions. If you come across as closed off, anxious, or disinterested, it can overshadow even the best prepared responses.
That's a great point, Sophia. A lot of candidates focus so much on what they're going to say that they forget to think about how they're saying it, or how they're being perceived. So, let's break it down. What are some key body language cues that can make or break an interview?
Absolutely, Adam. Let's start with the basics. First, eye contact. This is probably the most important aspect of nonverbal communication. Maintaining good eye contact shows confidence and attentiveness. But remember, you don't want to stare someone down. Balance is key. A few seconds of eye contact followed by a glance away is perfectly natural. If you're constantly avoiding eye contact, it may come across as insecurity or lack of interest. On the other hand, if you're holding it too long, it can feel intense and uncomfortable.
That's such a great observation. What about posture? Does it really matter?
Oh, yes. Posture is another major factor in how you're perceived. Sitting up straight, with your shoulders back, signals that you're confident and engaged. Slouching or crossing your arms, on the other hand, can make you appear disengaged or defensive. When you sit with an open posture, you're showing that you're approachable and ready to listen. Imagine you're standing tall, showing you're ready to take on the world. It's the same effect, but in an interview setting.
I've definitely seen candidates who slouch, and it can completely change the dynamic of the interview. Now, let's talk about hand gestures. A lot of people wonder whether they should use their hands or keep them still during an interview. What's the right balance?
Hand gestures can actually be a powerful tool when used correctly. Gesturing while speaking can help you appear more animated and passionate about your points, which can enhance your message. It can also make you seem more open and approachable. But here's the thing. Overusing them or making erratic, nervous gestures can have the opposite effect. The key is moderation. Use your hands to emphasize important points, but keep them controlled. You want to come across as calm, composed, and confident.
That's a great balance to strike. Now, what about facial expressions? I mean, we all know a smile goes a long way, but is there more to it than just looking friendly?
Absolutely, Adam. Facial expressions are incredibly important because they convey emotions and intentions. A warm, genuine smile is universally positive. It makes you appear approachable, friendly, and confident. But your facial expressions should align with your words. If you're discussing a serious challenge, for instance, your face should reflect that concern or thoughtfulness. A mismatch between what you're saying and how your face looks can confuse the interviewer or make you seem insincere. So be mindful of maintaining a natural expression that complements your tone and message.
That's such a good point, and I think it's key to remember that mirroring can be effective as well. Have you ever noticed how we tend to subconsciously mirror the body language of others? How can that work in an interview setting?
Yes, mirroring is a very subtle but powerful tool. When you mirror the body language of your interviewer, whether it's the tone of voice, posture, or gestures, you're essentially signaling that you're in sync with them, which helps build rapport. Now, I want to be clear. We're not talking about copying everything they do, but reflecting some of their cues in a natural way. For example, if they lean forward slightly when asking a question, you could do the same to show you're fully engaged. This technique can make the interaction feel more comfortable and connected, but it has to feel natural, so don't overdo it.
I love that. Small changes can make a big difference. Now, let's touch on nervous habits. A lot of people have habits like tapping their feet, playing with their hair, or fiddling with a pen. How can someone manage these nervous tics in an interview?
Nervous habits. They're so common, but they can be distracting in an interview. If you're tapping your feet, fidgeting with your hands, or playing with your hair, it might signal to the interviewer that you're nervous or not confident. The key here is awareness. Once you're aware of your habits, you can consciously avoid them. Try to keep your hands in your lap or on the table and maintain a steady posture. A good way to manage nervous energy is to focus on your breath. Take a deep breath, exhale slowly, and relax. It helps center your focus and calm those jitters.
That's great advice, Sophia. It's all about staying present and aware of how your body is communicating. So, before we wrap up this segment, what are some quick tips to make sure your body language is on point in an interview?
I'll give you my top 3 tips, Adam. 1. Sit up straight. Show confidence and openness by maintaining good posture throughout the interview. 2. Smile genuinely. Don't force it, but smile when appropriate to show warmth and confidence. 3. Stay engaged with your eyes. Make consistent but natural eye contact with the interviewer, showing that you're fully involved in the conversation. And remember, every gesture, smile, and posture choice should reflect your professionalism and confidence. Body language is a powerful tool for creating a positive impression.
Sophia, those are some fantastic tips. I think the main takeaway here is that body language can either enhance or detract from your interview performance, so being mindful of it is key to making a strong impression.
Exactly, Adam. Your words might get you the job, but your body language can help you land it. So be conscious, stay confident, and let your body reflect the positive energy you want to convey.
All right, we're going to dive into one of the most critical aspects of any high-stakes interview: staying calm under pressure. It's so easy to let nerves take over, especially when the stakes are high. Sophia, I know this is an area you're passionate about. Why do you think it's so difficult to stay calm during interviews, and how can we manage that stress?
Great question, Adam. Honestly, it all boils down to our natural fight or flight response. Interviews can feel like a high-pressure situation, and our brains often react to that pressure as if it's a threat. We might experience physical symptoms like a racing heartbeat, sweating, or even a dry mouth. These reactions are totally normal, but they don't have to control us. The trick is learning how to manage that stress so it doesn't interfere with your performance. It's all about staying in control of your body and mind.
I think many people don't realize that stress isn't inherently bad. It's how we handle it that makes all the difference. What strategies can candidates use to manage stress before and during the interview?
Exactly, Adam. Stress isn't the enemy. It's how we use it. A little bit of nervous energy can actually enhance your performance by keeping you alert and focused. But if that energy turns into anxiety, it can definitely work against you. Let's talk about some strategies to manage it. 1. Preparation is key. The more prepared you are, the more confident you'll feel. Review your resume, study the company, and practice common interview questions. When you're well prepared, you'll have a sense of control, and that helps reduce anxiety. 2. Breathing exercises. One of the quickest ways to calm down is to focus on your breathing. When you feel stress building up, take slow, deep breaths. Try a simple technique like inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, and exhaling for 4 seconds. This helps activate your body's relaxation response and lowers your heart rate. 3. Visualization techniques. Before the interview, take a few moments to visualize a successful conversation. Imagine yourself speaking confidently, answering questions with ease, and leaving a positive impression. Visualizing success helps reduce anxiety and sets you up for a more relaxed mindset. 4. Positive affirmations. Repeat positive affirmations to yourself before and during the interview. Tell yourself things like, "I am prepared for this," "I am capable," and "I can handle any challenge that comes my way." This will help combat negative thoughts and boost your confidence. 5. Control what you can. Focus on the things you can control, like your preparation, your appearance, and your demeanor. You can't control every question or how the interviewer reacts, but you can control your response and how you present yourself.
I love that idea of controlling what you can. I think a lot of times, candidates start to get overwhelmed when they think they have to control everything about the interview. But realistically, there will always be surprises. How can candidates embrace the unexpected and stay calm when something catches them off guard?
That's a great point, Adam. Embracing the unexpected is key to managing stress. Interviews are dynamic, and no matter how much you prepare, you're bound to encounter questions or situations that are unexpected. The first step is to stay present. If you get a tough question, don't panic. Take a moment to collect your thoughts before responding. If you need clarification, don't hesitate to ask the interviewer to rephrase the question. Pausing for a second to breathe and think is a sign of professionalism, not weakness. It shows that you're composed, thoughtful, and in control.
That's such a good tip. And I think a lot of times when we're caught off guard, we feel like we need to fill the silence right away. But taking that brief pause can really show confidence and poise.
Exactly, Adam. It also helps to reframe your mindset. Instead of viewing an unexpected question or situation as a threat, see it as an opportunity. For example, if you're asked a question you didn't expect, think of it as a chance to show your problem-solving skills or your ability to stay calm under pressure. Reframing the situation in a positive light helps you stay grounded and confident.
That's such a powerful way to look at things. And I think another part of staying calm is understanding that mistakes happen, even to the most experienced candidates. How should candidates handle it if they do make a mistake during the interview?
Mistakes are totally normal, and they don't have to be the end of the world. The key is how you handle them. If you realize you made a mistake, don't dwell on it. Acknowledge it briefly and move on. For example, if you misspoke or gave an incorrect answer, you can say something like, "I realize now that my initial response wasn't fully accurate. What I meant to say was..." This shows self-awareness and the ability to recover gracefully. It's also important to maintain a positive attitude throughout. If you stay composed, your interviewer will likely overlook small mistakes and focus on how you handled the situation.
That's such a great approach. It's all about maintaining your composure and showing that you can recover quickly. Now, let's talk about the actual day of the interview. What can candidates do to prepare mentally and physically on the day itself to reduce stress?
On the day of the interview, one of the most important things is to stay as relaxed as possible. I recommend getting a good night's sleep before the interview. Being well rested helps you think clearly and handle stress better. Eat a light meal before the interview to avoid feeling sluggish or hungry, and try to avoid too much caffeine, as it can make you jittery. Also, give yourself plenty of time to get to the interview location, so you're not rushing. Being early gives you time to breathe, collect your thoughts, and enter the interview room feeling calm and in control.
I love that advice about arriving early. It really gives you the mental space to prepare yourself, rather than feeling rushed and stressed out. Any final words for our listeners about handling stress and staying calm during interviews?
Yes, Adam. My final piece of advice is to remember that you're not alone in feeling nervous. It's a completely natural part of the interview process. The key is to embrace the nerves, focus on the positive, and use the techniques we discussed to stay calm. Confidence comes from within, and with the right mindset, you can handle any interview, even the most high-stakes ones.
Sophia, thank you so much for those incredible tips. I think our listeners are going to feel so much more prepared for any stressful interview situation now. All right. We've covered a lot of ground today, from preparing your mental approach, handling tough questions, and using body language to managing stress and staying calm during high-stakes interviews. I hope you're walking away with some valuable insights and actionable strategies that will help you crush your next interview.
Absolutely, Adam. Remember, interviews are an opportunity for you to showcase not only your skills and qualifications, but also your confidence and poise. With the tips we've shared today, you'll be better prepared to handle anything that comes your way and leave a lasting, positive impression on your interviewer.
That's right, Sophia. So, whether you're gearing up for your first interview or your 50th, take a deep breath, trust your preparation, and know that you have the tools to succeed. If you found this episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with anyone else who might benefit from these interview tips. We've got a lot more content coming your way to help you succeed in your career journey.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope this episode helps you feel more confident and prepared as you step into your next big interview. Keep practicing, stay calm, and remember, you've got this.
We'll see you next time, folks. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep nailing those interviews. Take care. Thank you.